Over the past few weeks, we have seen multiple different Halo Infinite related news drops, most of which though have brought a lot of speculation and skepticism from the community. I thought since we are most likely about to end another content drought, that I would put together a video on the features that Halo Infinite multiplayer needs to have if it's going to be successful. So let's just jump right in. The first and foremost, most important thing that Halo Infinite needs to get right on the multiplayer front is fun core gameplay. Back when we saw that campaign footage a few months ago, we did see things like sprint and slide and clamber, and I don't necessarily think those are game breakers by any means, but 343 needs to make sure that the gameplay mechanics play well in a multiplayer environment. I know there's the anti-sprinters out there, and I'm not going to say that's the wrong mindset at all, because it is completely valid and I wouldn't mind seeing a classic style game, but I think it's pretty unlikely that we see totally different mechanic sets for campaign and multiplayer, so I'm pretty much at this point just assuming going forward the multiplayer is going to have sprint, it's going to have clamber, it's going to have slide, etc. But really, we still need to see it in a multiplayer environment so we can see how all the different systems mesh together in that aspect of the game. We also are still waiting on the equipment system to be expanded upon. We have some vague inklings of how it's going to work. It's probably going to be somewhat similar to Halo 3 equipment, where you pick up equipment based on the map, but we don't know if it's going to be one-time use, what equipment there's going to be besides the ones we saw from the campaign gameplay, etc. The easiest way for Halo Infinite to fail as a multiplayer title or just a game in general is to have unfun or unoriginal gameplay, and hopefully 343 is very aware of that and understand that they need to get the core gameplay correct. I know Halo 5 has its detractors and a lot of people didn't like the core gameplay mechanics in Halo 5, and I'm not saying Halo Infinite should be a repeat of Halo 5, but honestly I thought the core gameplay from Halo 5 was pretty solid, and it was a lot of the other features of the game that failed it. That does give me hope that with some tweaks, 343 is really going to be able to hit the core gameplay of Halo Infinite out of the park, but we're just going to have to wait and see, obviously. The next thing that Halo Infinite multiplayer needs is a balanced but also fun sandbox. One thing that Halo has always excelled on throughout the entire franchise is that for the most part, when you boil it down, the competitive side of the game is fairly balanced, usually after you tweak some settings, but there's also tons of just fun weapons and fun vehicles to use when you're playing with your buddies and you're playing BTB or you're playing custom games, etc. Halo needs that fun side of the game to really drive interest in it. Halo, and really any game in this day and age, can't survive solely off of super competitive hardcore gameplay. It needs that more casual and fun aspect. Now obviously you still have to design the game with competitive players in mind, but we just need to make sure that there's a good balance between the two. Obviously you can't have super overpowered starting weapons that totally negate the rest of the sandbox, or you can't have power weapons that are just unbelievably overpowered, but you have to have things like really fun vehicles and fun power weapons, etc. to use. One thing that I think Halo 5 did pretty well, although I wasn't a huge fan of the rec system in Warzone, was all the different rec variants of all the weapons. I hope that we see a return of a system similar to that, although this time not tied to a microtransaction model. And even if we don't see Warzone return, we could at least use all these weapons to create fun game modes and custom games, and maybe see them in all sorts of different playlists other than the competitive arena modes. It's very important that 343 is able to make the game fun for everyone. You want to make sure that the sandbox is balanced so that competitive players aren't too upset when they're playing the game, but you also want to make sure that the average player can have fun when they just hop into matchmaking with their buddies, and it's not just a total sweat fest. Which, like I said, is something that the prior Halo games have done a fantastic job of. If you look at something like Halo 2 or Halo 3, there is tons of broken and overpowered weapons and equipment in those games, but it works in the sandbox, and all combined, it makes it a really fun and enjoyable experience. Next up, Halo Infinite needs to have a good progression system. This is pretty obvious, but one thing that I think Halo 5 didn't do a great job was having a good progression system, because so much of it was tied to those rec packs. 343 has mentioned that Halo Infinite is going to have a Reach style armor system, which, while there is some skepticism based on the information that we've seen like the armor coatings, Reach did have a really good progression system where you would play games and you would earn credits and you would level up, and then you could unlock all sorts of different armors and customization for your character. Now, we don't totally know how those armor coatings are going to fit into this whole thing, but hopefully there's tons of cool armors that you can unlock by playing the game and not just microtransactions, and hopefully there is a good progression system to go with all of that. While I don't necessarily think we need to return to the progression system from Halo 3, where you would gain 1 experience point for winning a game, and you would lose an experience point if you quit a game, and then you'd get nothing if you just lost the game, I think there does need to be incentive to actually win games even when you're playing social, so that players aren't just there to try and get experience like sometimes happens in the Master Chief Collection. I don't think it needs to be as night and day as Halo 3, where you get nothing if you lose and only get things if you win, but there just needs to be maybe like an experience boost or incentives to really try and actually win the game even when you're not playing ranked. Not only that, the ranked progression system needs to be pretty good. I personally didn't mind the system that Halo 5 had with seasons and bronze, silver, gold, all the way up to champion, but I know a lot of people prefer the old 1 to 50 system. I honestly think it's more likely that we get the Halo 5 style of ranking system, just because that's more of a modern ranking system than the 1 to 50, but what I really hope to see is seasons, and along with those seasons we see ranked rewards. You get a cool armor for hitting champion, or you get a cool weapon skin for hitting champion, things like that, because those will really give players incentive to actually grind to the top of ranked ladders. Currently, they're kind of testing that in Halo MCC with the skin for playing Recon, so I would hope that the information that they would gathered from that leads them to want to implement systems like that into Halo Infinite. I know I have personally seen a lot of people complaining that it's hard to hit 20 and they shouldn't lock skins behind ranked, but I totally disagree. Halo Infinite is going to have tons of skins and armors that you can unlock by playing campaign or just by playing the game and leveling up your experience. There should be some armors that are a lot harder to get, whether it's really hard campaign challenges like maybe doing lasso, or it's hitting the top of a ranked ladder in a certain season. These hard to achieve unlockables gives players a reason to keep on coming back and trying to achieve those things, so that they can show off the cool armor pieces or armor coatings or skins that they were able to unlock by accomplishing those things. Halo 3 did that really well back in the day, while something like Halo 5 did it pretty poorly, because basically everything was tied into the rec pack system, which was just all loot boxes. Next up, another feature that Halo Infinite multiplayer needs is just memorable maps. For me personally, I haven't really played on a super memorable Halo map since Halo 3. While Halo 4 has maps like Haven or Exile that are definitely solid maps, or Halo 5 has maps like Coliseum that are pretty good, there hasn't been that new map that just everyone absolutely loves from the more modern Halo games. And don't even get me started on the Halo Reach map pool, because that map pool is a disgrace. Not every map needs to be amazing in the game. I mean, even if you go look at the map pools from the older games that I put on a pedestal for having good map pools, like Halo 3, there's maps in there like Orbital or like Snowbound that are absolutely dog poop. So it's okay if not every map is amazing and memorable, but there needs to be that select handful or select couple that people really latch onto and talk about for years on end. Especially if Halo Infinite is going to be this 10-year project, we really need maps that we want to play on over and over and over. I think we're also going to see a lot of remakes on launch and over the years with that long development cycle, just like we kind of seen Modern Warfare 2019 recently bring back a bunch of the old Call of Duty 4 maps. However, like I was saying, we need those new memorable maps to complement those old remakes that are beloved by the community, because if only the old remakes are good, then there's just going to be a void in terms of new maps that people are going to really love. The next feature is just a good variety of game modes and playlists, both in the social environment and in the ranked competitive environment. While Halo 5 did this pretty poorly on launch with very few game modes and all of them being ranked on launch besides Warzone, I think over time they did a really good job actually of coming up with cool game modes and cool playlists that really mess with different settings and offer totally different gameplay experiences. While something like the Halo 3 throwback playlist from Halo 5 isn't the best playlist in the world just because classic settings don't work amazingly in Halo 5 Sandbox, playlists like that are really cool just to change things up a bit. So I hope on launch we see all of the main classic game modes and playlists that we're expecting And then we also see some new ones, and there's a lot of cool rotations over the years. I don't necessarily think that every game mode and every playlist needs to be in the matchmaking environment at once, but you can swap them in and out, kind of like how Halo 5 has done. Not only do I think this is really important for social, as it just entices people of all sorts of different tastes to jump into different game modes and playlists that they enjoy, it also just offers a new fresh experience for people that want to play something slightly different, but obviously want to stay on Halo. It's also very important on the ranked front that they offer ranked playlists, not just for things like Team Arena and Team Doubles and Team Slayer, but they also have ranked playlists for some more fun things. Team Snipers, Team SWAT, and plenty of ranked playlists that I'm not even thinking of because we haven't seen Halo Infinite. Next up is another feature that's actually really important, and that is the next new innovative game mode to really bring in new fans. While Halo Infinite is definitely going to offer a new experience on the arena multiplayer front, we kinda all know what we're gonna get from 4v4 or 8v8 or free-for-all Halo. It changes from game to game, but if you ask someone who doesn't play Halo at all, it kind of all meshes together. Now I know some of you are rolling your eyes because I'm lumping things like Halo 5 and Halo 2 together, but I hope that you can understand the point that when you play Team Slayer in Halo 5 or you play Team Slayer in Halo 2, it's still Team Slayer, you're still playing Team Deathmatch at the end of the day, and it still is Halo, so the gameplay experience there, while vastly different depending on the mechanics of the game, still gives the player what they were expecting in terms of a Halo game. So what we really need from Halo Infinite is that new game mode to really attract in new fans and say, hey, come play Halo, this is something totally new to Halo, and it's not what you may have played in the past or what you've heard about people talk about in the past. So for example, in Halo Reach, this was Invasion, or in Halo 4, this was Spartan Ops, or Dominion, or in Halo 5, this was obviously Warzone. Halo Infinite needs its Invasion or its Warzone that hopefully is extremely innovative and really attracts a lot of new fans. Obviously, a big one here is the possibility of a battle royale in Halo. I think that could be a really good sort of ancillary game mode to the core arena Halo experience. I've said this time and time again, and it doesn't necessarily need to be battle royale like I'm saying, but if you have a battle royale, there's going to be a ton of battle royale fans that come in and they check out the Halo Infinite battle royale, and from there, just like in Warzone or just like in Apex, once they enjoy the battle royale in Halo Infinite, they're going to check out the core arena gameplay from time to time, and maybe it'll turn them on to that too, and then they'll just totally become fans of Halo Infinite and not just the Halo Infinite battle royale. We saw people who played Apex go and try out Titanfall 2 and liked it, and we've seen plenty of people who played Warzone jump into some of the more core Modern Warfare game modes and enjoy those too. Not only that, it just keeps up interest for the game. It keeps players and viewers engaged in the Halo ecosphere, which is obviously a good thing. Now I want to reiterate, this doesn't need to be a battle royale, but it just needs to be something that attracts in new fans to kind of get their feet wet in the Halo universe, and then you can convert them to the Halo arena experience, because that might not be something that they think that they enjoy or aren't necessarily going to try out on their own, but if you dip their toes in and you get their feet wet, then they are more likely to jump into those core arena game modes and enjoy them. I don't think Halo 5 did an amazing job of this just because Warzone and the arena modes in Halo 5 were so vastly different, but I'm sure if you go talk to people that got into Halo 5 because of Warzone, they probably jumped into the arena modes a bit at some point, and maybe they enjoyed it or maybe they didn't. Alright, the next feature, and this is another one that's really important, is just Forge and the custom game creator really taking the next step. Forge and custom games took a huge leap forward in Halo 5, and we saw the community make absolutely amazing creations, and Halo Infinite just needs to take that to the next level. I hope in Halo Infinite that the maps that we see out of Forge are at the same level as a developer-made map. I want to play on a Forge map and not be able to tell the difference between it and a proper dev map. The forgers in the Halo community are plenty talented enough to do that, they just need the proper tools behind them. And this is obviously directly tied to the custom game creator. Hopefully you can make really cool custom games with all sorts of creative settings that I'm not even going to try and speculate on, because there are so many different things that you could implement so that players are able to create the coolest and most unique custom games that you can think of. Another big thing that I hope to see is that the lobby for custom games is upped from 16 players to 32 or 64 or 128. We're going to be on next-gen hardware and on PCs on day one, so we really need to support those bigger lobbies. Just think of all the cool things the community is going to be able to make if you can have a 64-person lobby or even bigger than that. Next up isn't necessarily a feature per se, but Halo Infinite needs to have good ongoing support for the foreseeable future. While I think that the post-launch content for Halo 5 was pretty decent, a lot of the maps that we saw come out were just remixes of previous maps, and I don't really want to see that again. Hopefully all the maps that are brought into the game post-launch are all totally new and unique. There also just needs to be a good flow of new game modes, and new maps and new weapons and new skins and new armor coatings, all of that stuff consistently being added into the game. I really hope that Halo Infinite kind of adopts the season model, just like some of the popular games do now, where every season they just drop a whole ton of new content into the game, rather than lots of little itty bitty drops. I assume that's probably how they're going to do it because that's basically what they did in Halo 5, they just didn't necessarily call it seasons. But one thing that I think Halo 5 failed at was it felt like support kind of stopped after a couple years, and Halo Infinite's supposed to be this 10-year project, so hopefully we continue to see cool new content added into the game for years on end. I think these are the main features and things that Halo Infinite multiplayer really needs to do right if it wants to be successful, but I also have a few things that I don't necessarily think are as important, or at least aren't as important on day one. The first of those is going to be other playable races. Obviously in some of the older Halo games you could play the elites in multiplayer, and that hasn't been something that we've been able to do in the recent Halo games. Some of you may disagree with this. I don't mind not being able to play elites or other races, at least in the core arena matchmaking game modes, but I would love to be able to play other races in custom games or special playlists, or maybe a specific mode like Invasion in Halo Reach where it was Spartans vs Elites. And hell, if we get a battle royale, maybe some of the different playables have different attributes to really liven it up. This is also something that I don't really think needs to be there on day one. While it would be cool to be able to play all sorts of different races on day one, this is something that they could add a year or two down the line. I don't think that this is one of the core aspects that Halo Infinite needs to get right out of the gate, like a lot of the other things that I'm talking about. The next feature in this list of things that I don't think need to necessarily be there or don't need to be there on day one is dual wielding. I think dual wielding presented a lot of balancing challenges in Halo 2 and Halo 3, so I don't even think we should see dual wielding in the normal matchmaking, but again, it would be cool to see it as a custom game option, or in specific playlists that are catered to it. And lastly, now this one I would actually like to see on day one, but I don't think we will, so that's why I put it into this category, and this is better mod support. Since Halo Infinite is going to be on PC on day one, we really could see the community create super cool things, especially if they have the support from 343 on day one. It would also be really cool if you could play modded content on the Xbox Series X. However, I'm not sure how likely that is going to be, and I think if they can't play it on the Xbox consoles, it's going to be even less likely that we see full mod support from 343. Since Halo Infinite, I believe, is going to be on Steam, it would be cool to see full Steam Workshop integration, as that makes it super easy for someone who doesn't necessarily know as much about computers to be able to just add mods into their game with the click of a button. I also hope we see easier ways to invite our friends into modded lobbies, because currently in MCC that is an absolute pain. Everyone has to have the mod installed, and then you have to organize the lobby and invite everyone, but it would be really cool if just the host could have the mods installed, and then he could invite all his friends, and then they'd just be prompted to install the mod while loading into the game, just like a lot of other games do. And with that wraps up the features that I think Halo Infinite multiplayer needs if it's going to be successful. If there's any that you think I missed or any that you are really passionate about, go ahead and let me know in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. And if you want to catch me live and just chat with me and ask me questions or play various games with me, make sure to follow me over on Twitch. And you can also follow me over on Twitter if you want to see cool Halo clips and just my ramblings from day to day. And I'll see you all next time.